You are waiting to be born. The wishes of an entire city swirl in the nebula of your heart and head, and it makes you happy and sad and lonely and hopeful. You're still deciding which wishes you like the best. There's many you don't understand, and more you think probably weren't really meant. You know something special will happen to the ones you like best because Mama Zinky has told you so. You are the only one in the city who will get to call her that. Someday, when she has other grandchildren, they will call her Mom Mom, and all 6 of you will call her husband Pop Pop. But only you will call her Mama Zinky. It'll be like a special secret. Tomorrow is the day you've decided to be born. Mom and Dad are getting married tomorrow, on the new year, right in front of where you're hatching. You're planning it as a big surprise, just after the ceremony is finished. You don't want to ruin Uncle Otto's photographs. Uncle Kiki will be there too, and you're excited to meet them all in person. Dad and Mama Zinky come to visit you the most, since Dad's job is to look at you, and Mama Zinky's job is to come out and take samples. She's coming now, her hair bound in braids with many warding herbs dripping over her shoulders and her winter cape. You giggle to yourself and tone down the magic. You pretend you won't be born tomorrow, while she sweeps in the aura and the haze. It gathers in a small glass vial, and she studies the magic. Then she taps a glittering device on her shoulder and says, "Does anyone else get a strange vibe from this thing, like it's playing a game?" Madame Zinky receives several answers, but in the end says professionally, "Well, it's stable. I estimate next week it'll hatch. You want to tell the fellow in the squires he should be all set for his wedding tomorrow." You can't wait to surprise them all. Overnight, you sort out the wishes. You pick the kinds of things that Mama would like. I wish we had a baby. I wish my luck would turn around. I wish wealth to my bodega on Pine Street. I wish my back didn't hurt. The ones that don't sound like Mama, you don't pick. I wish I didn't care about work so much. I wish my ex would be alone and miserable without me. I wish my mother would die. There are other ones you can't figure out how to answer, like the stone giant who wishes he didn't break so many chairs. You could make him smaller, or make all chairs larger, but like Uncle Otto says, sometimes the letter of the law is not a real solution. So you wish the best for the stone giant boy and hope he figures out how to not break chairs, and move on to the next wish. Around midnight, when magic is strongest, Mama Zinky comes back with Pop Pop. His feet crunch in the snow as he wanders nearer. "Are you sure this is stable?" She answers, "I asked you to look at it, Cole. There's a wedding here tomorrow for a guy in scrying, and it seems to have ramped up its magical resonance, but not expanded or collapsed. Sure is pretty, especially in the snow." "That's good. Dad likes to look at pretty and interesting things. He'll like to look at you." You have a flash, as if answering your own wish, of a future where your dad is rocking you in his arms and looks down at you with his big owly eyes. He's smiling the way he smiles when he looks at Mom and when he looks at the moon. "Think they'll mind if I crash the party?" Pop Pop asks. "No." Mama Zinky reaches into her robe and hands him 2 cards. "The bride invited us both. Said some instinct told her we should be there." "Is she a witch?" "Fade-touched, though she doesn't know when she encountered any wild magic." Mama Zinky stares right into your eyes, and you wink at her. Uncle Otto starts taking pictures before the guests arrive, and he stares at you a long moment. He calls Uncle Kiki over, and you smile and wave at them both, and Uncle Kiki waves back and points. Otto nods, puts his arm on Kiki, and pulls him a little bit away. Then he goes back to taking pictures of the cake and the decorations and the flowers and everything else. You love all the guests. You are so glad Uncle Otto is able to leap from chair to chair and capture all the different portraits. Uncle Kiki comes up behind him and records the best wishes for the newlyweds. The wedding is beautiful. Many people wished for weddings full of sparkles and white silk and towering cakes, but none of them are as pretty or interesting as this party, because this is the wedding of your parents. Mom and Dad say the nicest things to each other and take wonderful vows. When they kiss, everyone cheers. Then there's a big meal and a cake and more toasts and lots of dancing. You try to dance with everyone, and Mama Zinky and Pop Pop whisper to each other. What are they doing with their wands? You didn't plan on Mama Zinky and Pop Pop trying to unwish the wishes. You'll feel their power wrap around you, shrinking you. You see the terrible things that happen if you are not born today. The unraveling starts with your uncles. Griviotto has been dreading what happens after this wedding, when he doesn't have an excuse to talk to Kian every day. In his awkwardness and uncertainty, he'll forget he doesn't need to say anything special, that he can just exist near his lover without being a disappointment. He will become a disappointment when he accidentally folds back up, and Kian-Kei will not pry him open a second time. Mama Zinki is next. New beginnings are hard, and there is no one harder to forgive than yourself. And her ex-husband will try and try, but she will determine incorrectly that he does not need her, that he will be better and happier without her. They still work together sometimes, the way all witches do. They will pine and love each other at an impassable distance. Mama Zinki needs a miracle to remind her that she is more than her badness. But the worst is Mom and Dad. They are complete together. They're happy. They will travel and delight in the world and see hundreds of beautiful things. They don't need you, but they want you. Soon, all that delights them will be tainted by the absence of you. You see them both crying, not together, but as if separated by an invisible wall. They each blame themselves. They are afraid to discuss because the pain is too raw. So, alone, they both grieve the child that they do not have. They grieve for you. So you crack through Mama Zinki and Pop-Pop's warding charms. You break into their world. You force yourself to be born and explode with the wishes that you have chosen to grant. And as you do, you pull hard at the threads of their destiny. Mom and Dad stumble and fall into your dreamy light first. They didn't think to run. Both are drawn to your beauty and light by instinct. Your uncles are next. Otto begins to flee, escaping with the crowd. Then he sees Kiki, burdened by short legs and a shell. Does not have the instinct to run from flashing lights, but to curl up. As the light consumes them both, Otto's eyes are shut, and his arms are wrapped around Kiki. Madame Zinki and Pop-Pop are outside your radius, protected by their wards and their wands, keeping the crowd behind them safe. Safe from what? Are you dangerous? You won't let anything bad happen to Mom and Dad and your uncles. You'll keep them warm in the snow and dry in the rain and safe from everything bad that happens with time. They'll be here with you in the haze, pinned like beautiful photographs in their happiest thoughts. Pop-Pop takes Mama Zinki's hand and tries to draw her away, to get help, to call on higher powers. But Mama Zinki is looking into your eyes again. She wraps her hand around the threads of her wishes, his too. In the past, she would have pulled. She would have needed to control you. But now, Mama Zinki waits and listens. She senses your intentions, and she steps nearer. Pop-Pop hesitates, then takes hold of the threads and goes with her. They step into your light and warmth. You are all aswirl with their wishes, so much louder now that they are part of you. This is so much better than the voices of many. Uncle Otto is full of poetic thoughts, because even though the light hurts his eyes, Kiki is shielding him. I'm so glad he's here. I wish I could tell him how glad I am he's here with me. What's wrong with me that I'm glad he's here in this weird frickin' place with me? And I make sure Kiki knows that, because all Uncle Kiki wants to know is how Otto feels, really feels, beyond all his bravado and swagger and uncertainty. Mom and Dad are stunned, caught mid-dance, both thinking only about their future and the things they wanted to do together. We wanted to see waterfalls and beaches. We wanted to grow old together. We wished for kids. And I can show them all those things. And I can... Wait. Can Mama Zinki hear the wash of thoughts and wishes too? Can she hear how Pop-Pop, with one foot outside and one foot in, is wishing he could be married to this brave woman again? No, I can't hear that, but I don't need to. She's talking to you. You need to let these people go, honey. But they're my family and I love them. I want to grant all their wishes. And that's lovely, Mama Zinki says. You have a wonderful big heart, but they'll die in here. Oh, you didn't know that. When you finish granting all those wishes, you're going to fizzle into nothing. You only sort of knew that. Mama Zinki, isn't there anything you can do so that we can all be together? The witch looks at you, confused. Her ex-husband touches her shoulder and they glance around at the intertwining of the city's hopes and dreams. "I don't know," she says at last, "but I have a wish." You listen intently, certain it will be your favorite wish, the best wish you've ever granted. "I wish that you would hatch as a little human child, and not as a witch light." Zinka blinked as the magic in her hands disappeared and fell backwards because it had been pulling her in. Cole caught her. "Are you all right?" "Maybe," Zinka said. There was the goblin and the kappa still wrapped in a green and turquoise ball shivering together, a camera tangled between them. There was the bride and groom, lying flat, looking up at the stars, hand in hand, both in white, blending in with the snow. Zinka touched her head. There had been something else caught in the witch light. Someone else that ought to be here. A baby began to cry in the snow. "Whose baby's that?" The bride was alarmed and hurriedly sat up and looked for the child. The groom followed. "No one on my side had a baby. Mine either." She found the child, naked and newborn, wailing, because the world was not as warm and cozy as it might have wished. "Oh, there you are. Shush, 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 honey. We'll find your mommy." "Maybe it's a neighbor." The groom put his arms around her and looked down at the baby. He was very pleased by what he saw and smiled lovingly. This soothed the child. Zinka smiled and put her fingers to her forehead, massaging the dull ache there. "They won't find the parents." Cole said, "We can gather a whole coven to scry and—" "You won't find the parents," Zinka announced confidently, and the two looked startled at the witch striding nearer to them. "Because you are the parents. These two," the witch pulled the kappa and the goblin apart and out of the snowdrift. The goblin reached for the kappa, determined not to be separated. "Are the uncles." "We're not," the goblin protested. "I ain't never been anyone's uncle. I don't even know these people." "Cole, my love, you are his pop-pop, and I—" Zinka only hesitated now, looking down at the confused and hungry infant. It had seemed like a good idea at the time, but who was she to saddle these two people with a child? Who was she to insist that a goblin and a kappa take responsibility for a human? Who was she but some washed-up witch? Cole reassuringly took her arm. "You are his mama, Zinky." At his words, the last lingering flares of the magic burst into the sky. The newlyweds oohed and exclaimed. The crowd clapped slightly, thinking perhaps this had all been part of some show. It seemed very settled then, very final. The goblin, unimpressed by all this magic, muttered and took off his jacket. "Well, at least wrap my nephew up then. It is winter after all."